You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Hello, everyone. If you're a fan of the show, you'll remember episode 13, rightfully named Dumpster Fire Honeymoon, where my wife and I share our week-long story of misery on our wonderful trip to Canada. Well, a listener reached out to me recently and wanted to share her not-so-fairy tale honeymoon as well. Enter Katie and Mitchell, a blissfully newlywed couple from North Dakota, excited to embark on their first big adventure as husband and wife. With dreams of scenic vistas, horseback rides through the majestic Black Hills, and cozy nights in historic hotels, it was to be an unforgettable journey. But as we all know, the best laid plans can often take a detour. What was supposed to be a picturesque getaway quickly spiraled into chaos. Right off the bat, the couple found themselves dealing with a bit of culinary misadventure, which ended in battling a fierce bout of food poisoning, which had them sharing a bathroom. Not exactly how you want to start a romantic evening. Only days later, Katie, a lifelong horse owner, took a tumble down a hill and subsequently broke one of her ribs. So buckle up as we recount Katie and Mitchell's roller coaster honeymoon story. From horse rides gone wrong to stomachs churning, we'll take you through every twist and turn. Hello, Katie. Can you tell us about your unforgettable honeymoon?
They say that every marriage has a hitch, and I think every honeymoon has a hitch, and even sometimes the entire honeymoon is the hitch. So I want to reiterate here that I want to thank you for inviting me on to share the story with you of our honey mess. And yeah, so anyways, we're going to go back in time a little bit here to September 10th of 2011, so 9/10/11. That was when we got married. And we got married in a cute little rural place outside of Moorhead, Minnesota. And prior to the wedding, I was the one doing all of the wedding planning. And so I told my soon-to-be husband, you have to take some weight off of me, and you've got to, help me out here and plan the honeymoon, except for we can't go very far because my mother was in very ill health at that time.
Okay.
So we're like talking up, we're on the precipice of hospice at this point. And, so anyways, so that's where we were at that point in time. So, I got to plan the whole wedding and, venue, decorations, caterer, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I didn't have my mom to help me, so a lot of that was on me. So that put a lot of the honeymoon planning on my husband. And I wasn't too worried about it because he had already worked for an international company, or he was working at that time for an international company. So he had to organize like trips overseas and trips, to this city and state and that, wherever and whatever to do testing, because he was a testing engineer for this company at that time. And anyway, so we get married. Yes, there were some hitches. That's a different podcast. But anyways, the following day, so the Sunday following that Saturday of the 10th of September of 2011, we stayed at some family members in Sioux Falls. To go back, we were in Fargo, North Dakota at that time, but we went and we stayed overnight in Sioux Falls. And to carry on our merry way to the Black Hills of South Dakota for our honeymoon, because we couldn't go far, because obviously if my mom just suddenly slipped, we had to get back really quick. We could have gone any direction, but for some reason we chose exactly where my mom and dad chose to go for their honeymoon, for the same reason, because my dad's dad was in ill health as well. So I was like, let's carry on the family tradition here and yeah, their honeymoon was a little bit of a disaster too. Won't maybe totally get into that, but they decided to tent camp that whole week that they were out there, and it snowed the entire time. We didn't have that problem. It was beautiful weather. So we roll into Hill City on Monday evening, and we went to a famous, I'm not going to say business names, just because I don't want to. So we went into a famous restaurant to get a nice dinner, anyways, a steak dinner, before we went to our first historic, because that was the other thing that my husband did, was everything he set up other than 2 nights were historic hotels in the Black Hills. And so this was the first night. It's supposed to be the kickoff of our honeymoon, right? Like, supposed to be great and wonderful and awesome and all this kind of stuff. And yeah. So, like, we go and we sit down for this romantic dinner, and we eat our dinner, and it was wonderful. It was great, salad and a steak. We get up to our hotel room, and all of a sudden it was like, we look at each other, and it was like, oh, yeah, you don't feel good either. And nope. Mm-mm. And it was like, all of a sudden it was like the fight for the bathroom.
Oh, no.
Because both of us just were hit with, first honeymoon night, food poisoning. So we are fighting over the toilet. First honeymoon night, very romantic.
Yes.
Not exactly the way you want to be acquainted.
No.
And he's like, okay, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go down to the gas station down the road. It's like a 24-hour gas station. I don't remember if it's a Casey's or whatever the heck it was. So he is brave soul that goes, and I'm sitting in the bathroom, and I'm like, I'm going to die. Like, it was so bad. So anyways, he got some Pepto, and somehow we kind of got ourselves a little bit nursed up on Pepto-Bismol that night and limping a bit along. Next morning, I wake up and I'm a disaster. I felt like I had drank like a case of beer the night before. I had such a smashing headache. I felt awful. And part of this was coming to altitude. So in Fargo, we are coming from roughly 900 feet. And where we rolled into in Hill City is roughly 5,000 feet.
Okay.
Not a great change, but now throw some food poisoning on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably not a good idea. At least I'm not recommending it. But anyway, so yeah. Husband's like, yeah, I do high altitude testing all the time for my international company that he worked for, and he did. And so it's like, oh, yeah. And then so he's telling me, he's like, you got to drink some Gatorade. You can't just drink water. You got to drink some Gatorade. I'm like, shut up. So it actually took me a couple days to bounce out of this. I was trying to be a good player. If he were sitting in the, right with me right now, he'd probably be like, yeah, no, you were a miserable person. But anyways, so we get through it. It's now, so that was Monday morning. Tuesday morning. Sorry, gosh, I can do the calendar here. Tuesday morning, waking up. Miserable, because we just spent the entire night like paper, rock, scissors for the bathroom. And, so it took me until probably about Wednesday evening before I started feeling better. And he was great. He was like, he bounced out of that. I'm like, show off. And I'm like dragging myself around. I'm like, yeah, I'm having fun. Yeah, it's great. I got this splitting headache because we're at like, altitude. And he's like, this is not altitude. I'm like, it is when you come from Fargo. But anyway, yeah. So we're just, cruising around the Black Hills, trying to hit up all these like other spots, like hitting up Mount Rushmore, the Cosmos, reptile gardens. This is no way, shape, or form in order. I'm just trying to go by memory. But yeah, like we're just driving all over the place. We did Jewel Cave. And then getting towards the end of our stay down there in the Black Hills, our last night was going to be, and I think I can probably say this business. You can edit this out if you care to. The Bullock Inn, we had secured the presidential suite. Amazing room, just beautiful antique room. And we check in, but we decided to go driving around before we came back to try and get some dinner reservations at a nice fancy steakhouse again to basically find our way out of the Black Hills again, because we actually ate throughout the Black Hills very like just, kind of conservatively. Like we didn't hit a steakhouse every day.
No.
We were like, yeah, let's hit a sandwich shop here and there or something, goofy. And so we're driving around and we're trying to figure out what we were going to do for the last day, basically. And I don't even know what time of day it was. I think we're talking about noon to mid-afternoon, so 3-4 o'clock. And I'm like, well, let's see if somebody has a trail ride open, because it's like you always open up like what's going on for tourism in the Black Hills. And my husband is not a horsey person. I more or less grew up with horses. And so he kind of looks at me and he's like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, let's see if we can, it's kind of fun to ride a horse. Even though I got horses at home, I can ride up here. It's just like sometimes it's like, yeah, a bicycle down, somewhere in California might be different than where you live, right? Yep. And so we're driving around and, so not much is open after Labor Day. And we discovered this too, since we we showed up after Labor Day. The first day we're pulling into Hill City right before we decided to eat at the restaurant that gave us food poisoning. We walked into a little boutique, and the lady right away was like, "Oh, you're a newlywed," and I was like, "Wait, what? Is there a sign on my forehead? How did you know that?" And she's like, "It's okay. Anybody that shows up here after Labor Day, they're either newlyweds or they're nearly dead." And so the whole week we're looking around, and we're like, wow, it's so true. And it was mostly full of nearly dead. I didn't say that out loud. But yeah. So anyways, we're just cruising around and trying to just basically kill time, because what do you want to go do? Is go sit and twiddle your thumbs in the presidential suite, which was probably the more safer option. But we were up for more adventure after a week of starting with food poisoning and altitude sickness, and yeah. So we finally find a sign that say such and such trail rides this way, and it was like following a garage sale, like you're going to somebody's yard sale, garage sale, estate sale. It was like this way and that way and this way and that way, and we're like, what? Okay, so we're like, yeah, how much do you want to bet that like it's closed? Probably, because everything, it was like you pull up to it and it's like, oh, closed for the season, right? So we pulled up, and here's a pickup with a stock trailer, and then there's some people and then some horses in the distance, and it was like, oh, well, this might actually be legit. Like, this place might actually be open. And so we pull in, and we're watching, and we're looking, and we're studying, and then I pull out a bag of Doritos from the back seat of our. You had to say it too in your one podcast with your honey mess of a story. That you were in an F-150. We were also in an F-150. So I pull it out of the backseat of the F-150. This just engorged like a full of blood tick bag of Doritos because we're at altitude. And I'm making fun of it because it's like this is. And at this point, I think I'm already acclimated to the altitude, but whatever. It's like we're waiting for these people to come in with these horses. So they're coming in, and then like the guy comes up to our window and he's like, "Well, how can I help you?" And like my husband is like, "Well, we were kind of wanting to go on a trail ride, but we didn't know if you were open." Like, "Yeah, well, I'm open, but I just started these guys on a trail ride. Can you guys wait about an hour to an hour and a half and we'll be back?" And we're like, "Yeah, well, that's okay." You know, it's like we're kind of pushing sunset at that point, but yeah, I think we'll be okay. And he's like, "Okay, great. We'll be right back." So he takes this group off, which, again, newlyweds or newly dead. These were newlyweds. We're like, okay. And so in about, like he said, about an hour and 15, 20 minutes, they were coming back into the corral, right? And, okay, they're alive. They're walking. They get off. They got big smiles on. Great. Okay, perfect. So we get out. We meet this guy that runs this thing. And he's like, "All right, yeah, it'll be so much, blah, blah, blah." And we're like, "Okay, cool." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I actually get to get my husband on a horse," which never happens, okay? And there's still, to this day, probably a giant reason, and this is one of them, why I can't get him to like horses. Not that he doesn't like horses. He's just not going to be a converted horse guy. Yep. So, and that's fine. It's okay. He's really good on a four-wheeler. I tend to roll those too. Anyway, so it's a totally different story. So anyways, we signed some waivers, which is pretty typical when you have, you know, stuff with horses, especially. And he asks us what our riding level is. And I say, "This guy has zero experience." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And I say, "I have been riding horses pretty much my entire life." And he goes, "Okay." And then so he goes back to the corral and he pulls out two horses that were not previously used. I can understand that. They were just used. So, yeah, you want to freshen up your stock.
Yep.
And so he brings these two horses out and he's like, "This is your horse and this is your horse. You guys know how to saddle your horses." And my husband, he's like, "Yeah, no." And I'm like, "Yep, give me the saddle." I'm on this. And so he basically throws me tack, like literally throws me tack. And like he saddles my husband's horse up. And he kind of goes through the horse and he explains, you know, like what you do. It's like you get on and she can steer like a bobcat. So if you want to go right, you pull on the right. If you want to go left, you pull on the left. And that's, you know, whatever. And if you want to stop, you pull both back. And if you want to go, you kick with both legs, right? You know, that kind of thing. Basic. And he looks at me and he's like, "Oh, you got this." And I'm like, yeah, I do. I got horses. I'm like, yeah. I wouldn't call myself like a world-class equestrian. I have had horses. Oh gosh, I've been around horses since I was at least 9, 10 years old. And I still have my first horse, which I got instead of a car at age 16.
Wow.
So instead of 16 years old, I get a car. You know, when you get your driver's license, I got a horse. I still have her. I'll bring her up again later. And anyway, so we get on our horses. And we had just gotten this camera before we got married. We had just gotten this camera from Best Buy. And it was a Canon 60D with a lens, and I'm trying to even remember what the lens was. It was like a 135 millimeter to a something, and I can't remember what the top end of it was. It was a very common lens.
Okay.
And if I were to dive back into photography, because I did a little stint in photography. If I were to dive back into that, it would just come right back. But right off the top of my head, I cannot remember. I haven't touched that camera since 2016. But anyways, at that time when we picked that camera and lens up as a kit, it was like just shy of $1,200 at Best Buy.
Ooh.
And
a lot of money.
He was better at like the camera, but he's like, I don't trust myself. It's all I'm going to be able to do is just stay on this horse. He's like, you take the camera because you sort of know how to use the camera and you know how to ride a horse. I'm like, okay. So I take the camera. And before we swing our legs over our ponies, and I say ponies, they were not ponies. They were small horses that I asked the guy. They were Arabian Morgan crosses, otherwise known as Morabs. And they were both about 14 and a half hands. So at the wither, that would be about 2 inches shy of 5 feet at the wither, just to give you an idea on height. And an idea on weight, I don't think those were pushing more than 1,100 pounds. I think they were somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 pounds. They were dainty. They were muscular. They were solid little horses, but they weren't like big giant things like my horse, which is a half draft. And she was at that time probably about 1,650 as far as weight goes, 1,650 pounds. And anyway, so I take the camera. He jumps on. His horse's name is Goldie. And before I jump on, I ask the trail master, what is this horse's name? And he looks at me and he says, his name is Boo Boo. And I ask, oh, well, why is his name Boo Boo? Because I was expecting somebody's name to be Yogi.
Yep.
And he shakes his head and he starts chuckling and he just turns and walks away. And I'm like,
oh, no.
That was weird. I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm going to climb on this little gray horse named Boo Boo. So we take off and we're walking. And Goldie is a saint for my husband. She's reading him. Like, this guy chose the best horse for my husband because, like, my husband does not know horses. But this guy also knew what Goldie's capabilities were and what my capabilities were, which was not something that I was expecting, nor was my husband. And he just gets his horse and he's like, let's go. And he takes off in a dead fast gallop. And I'm like, all right, we'll keep up because this is fun, right?
Yep.
We are up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down all of these hill passages, and they're basically trails, and they're not all ski trails, but they're trails that go traipsing all over this ski, like, I wouldn't call it a resort, but there's this downhill skiing facility, we'll call it that. And we're up and down and we're up and down. We are like running downhill, and we're doing this like Man from Snowy River style. And all of a sudden he's like, the trail master's like, drop your reins, no hands, and like he's throwing his hands up, and I can tell that his reins are dropped. I'm like, I got this because I've ridden a horse or two in my time. So I'm kind of thinking at the same time, like, I was kind of trying to hope to get some pictures of my husband on a horse. I can't do this. So we are jumping across creeks. We're jumping across logs. We're running up hills. We are running down hills, which as a person from, a lot of horseback history, you don't run a horse downhill because you're just asking for trouble.
Yep.
And anyways, but I'm going for it. Forgot to mention, earlier that morning, it rained and rained and rained and rained. So it was still dewy, wet, chilly. We're out there in sweatshirts because it's chilly. We're probably 65, 68 degrees, but everything is wet. And we are traipsing all of these trails, and everything is doing well. I keep looking over my shoulder because, like, and at a certain point, I'm going like, gosh, like, this isn't good, because, like, at a certain point, I looked over and I could see that my husband's no longer holding onto the reins of the horse. He is just holding onto the horn of the saddle and balancing himself. And this horse is so good. She is just like, I'm going to carry on my little merry dainty way and just carefully climb over this. Like, she was like, I know you don't know how to ride. So she's like, I'm going to take care of you. She was an absolute babysitter. So when he said, yeah, he gets this horse, yeah, he was right. And we're going. He is way behind us. My husband's way behind us at this point. And I have no wherewithal to try and keep up with the trail master that's basically guiding us on this way. But we get onto this really, and it's weird because it was a wide path, but it was grassy. It was horizontal, but it was slicker than crud because we had a very steep incline coming down. Because if you can imagine coming onto this path, it's going to gradually curve around to the right.
Okay.
And it would be like one of these trails that I would call like a terrace, so it's like flat, but it follows this whole thing. Yep. But it's only flat because it was carved to be that way. And the whole incline is just steep on either side. So going up, it's steep. Going up, that would be to our left. But then to the right, it is steep going down. But it was a decently wide path, probably enough that you could just about drive a vehicle down. But it was all grass, and it was all wet. And Boo Boo gets out there, and he's trying to keep up with. And I as I get out there, and I see our trail master go up the hill on the other side. So as you get around this little curve, as you would call it, the trail goes basically straight up again because you're going up another hill. And I can see him just go up the hill. And Boo Boo is trying to keep up. I've got the camera in my right hand. I think it was my right hand. Pretty sure it was my right hand. And then all of a sudden I can feel Boo Boo slipping out from underneath me. Every time he put his foot down, it was going slip, 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 slip. And it was perpetual. It was like, I'm like, we're losing it. Yep. We're losing it. Like, I'm looking and I'm like, do I ditch this? Do I not? I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm still hanging onto the camera, not really thinking of the camera, but I'm like, we're going down. We are going down. I let go of the reins. I remember doing that. I don't know why, but I just wanted to give him his head, at least, to try and see if he could use his head to catch his balance, which that was not happening. So he goes down and he starts crashing on his front right shoulder, which as soon as he hits, and you know how inertia works, yep. Where am I going? I am going flying forward. And I'm going forward, and we're on the edge because he was trying to catch himself. And so every time he caught himself, he was getting himself closer and closer to the inside of that, like basically ring. So we're going to go downhill, right? Because you're not going to spin out and go outside. It's not like a car where you would do that. Like he was actually getting himself to the inside. And I could see everything is coming. And all I remember is like, oh, yeah, the grass and the brush. Oh, yeah, it's coming really quick to my face. And we go down this really steep incline. And I remember him, like, somehow it was like his front right knee, like, caught something. And it caused his whole body to kind of pivot but shift. It wasn't enough to make his like whole back end kick over in front of us, but it made his whole back end kick over where it was like, now it's coming over me. And I could see as I look up all of these hooves, and I'm going, well, that's not supposed to be there. as it goes in slow motion over me. I'm going, oh, yeah, no, it's not good. Yeah, no, crap. And the horse rolls over me. The the pommel of the saddle. So in a Western saddle where you have the horn that you would hold on to, everybody's very recognizable about the Western saddle. The saddle sets on basically the stand, or the, like, for lack of better words, and it's called the pommel. So it goes up and over, and in the middle is where the horn comes out of. But the shoulder of the pommel dug right into my shoulder underneath my collarbone. And I remember as the horse went over, my arm was pinned. It would have been my right arm. My right arm was pinned, and the camera was in that hand, but it was forward. And as the horse rolled over, the horse actually had his head curled to his left. And so his head cleared everything. But yet I could see all of the feet and everything come right over me. And I had 1,000 to 11 pounds of horse with saddle intact roll right over me.
Oh.
And I remember thinking, like, gosh, I got to get rid of these stirrups. I got to get rid of these stirrups because that's the last thing I need to do is get drugged. And I was already clear of the stirrups because by the time I had flopped back over, and I was like, I don't even know if there's a word to explain. I think there's more of a sound effect to explain what happened. It was not so much of an oofta, it was more of a like I was just flattened, like steamrollered. And I remember I just had the ginormous chiropractic adjustment that I've ever had. It was like crunch all the way across.
Oh, knocked the wind out of you.
A little bit, but yet after the horse rolled over me, and I grabbed the camera, and I had the camera bag, and I looked at everything, and I looked at me, and I sprung to my feet, because you know how this happens. Like, you fall down, and you're like, oh, right back on my feet, like, oh, nobody saw that. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, crud. The guy's horse is running off right now. It's like, oh, dang. Like, I got to go catch this thing. And so I'm like, whew. I'm like, I never remember being out of wind. But then it was about, like, the time that I was clambering back up to the trail. Here comes my husband trotting up on Goldie. And he's like, what happened? I'm like, hold on. I got to go catch Boo Boo. And I go and I get Boo Boo. And Boo Boo just has a slight cut on his front right knee. It wasn't bad. It was just a little tiny cut, to which I actually had a matching cut on my knee through my jeans. And some grass stains, quite a few grass stains on my right leg. And I had dark sweatshirt, so it didn't match the rest of everything. Not to mention the debris that was stuck in my hair. But anyways, and then, like, we sat there. Like, I caught Boo Boo, and I'm, like, looking at him, and I'm checking him over. I'm like, oh, my gosh, this guy's going to hate me so bad. I just crashed his horse. You know, like, I'm okay. I can breathe. I can talk. I feel a little smashed. But I'm okay, right? I'm okay. I'm smashed, but I'm okay. And then I start laughing. I'm like, well, that was really funny. Like, and then I just get the giggles. And I don't know why I got the giggles, but I got the giggles. Climb back on the horse. All of a sudden, Trail Master comes back, or, you know, and he's just like, oh, where'd you guys go? Why are you off your horse? And I'm like laughing. I just explained to him, and I don't, to this day, he has zero idea what exactly happened, because I didn't tell him. It wasn't his fault.
No.
Exactly, except for we were going way too fast. Really wet corner, probably. You know, when we go through driver's safety to get a driver's license, they tell you not to overdrive your conditions. Yeah, you can't override your conditions either. And it also means your experience too.
Yep.
So anyways, yeah, well, I didn't explain what happened because I'm like, oh, I don't need to let him into thinking I'm going to sue him because I'm not. I've been in the horse world. I've had enough horse wrecks myself. I've had worse horse wrecks than this, but like, I'm like, yeah, we're good. Let's just going to climb back on this pony and ride off into the sunset. And that's literally what I did. Got back on, kept on going. And the whole way I kind of was like, God, there's kind of like this weird dull pressure. It doesn't hurt, but it's a dull pressure, but it doesn't hurt. I'm like arguing with myself. And it's like, oh, but there's a dull pressure. Yeah, but it doesn't hurt. And, it's like back and forth with myself. And we get back down. We hitch up our ponies. And I think he asked us if we could untack his horses because it was, it was getting dusty at that point. I'm like, yeah, fine, that's good. So I'm like swinging the saddle off of mine. I'm swinging the saddle off of my husband's horse. And Western saddles are not light. They're usually between about 30 and 40 pounds a piece. Anyway, so I'm like whipping this thing off twice over and whatever. So we get in our truck and we're driving back to the hotel and we're like, yeah, well, we've got, let's stop in and see if they can accommodate us. And they should have because it was Thursday night at some restaurant there in Deadwood. And so we go into this restaurant and we order, I don't know, I can't remember if it was some fancy cut of beef. It was like prime rib or something like that or, whatever. Ribeye steak, something like that. And as we're waiting, the adrenaline just started peeling off of me. And it was just like, I'm like looking at my husband. I'm like, oof, dude. Like, oh, I don't know. I can't, no, yeah, no, we can't do this, And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, Like, the adrenaline was peeling off so fast. And I don't know, you've been in enough adrenaline situations.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you ever get nauseous afterwards. I know a lot of people get really super tired, which I also felt, but I got stupid nauseous. And I'm like, I can't. No, we're not doing this. So we actually, before our food came out, our waitress came back out. And we're like, hey, we have to change plans. We have to take this to go. And so she's like, well, that's fine. She's great and everything. And they bring back our to-go boxes. And by this time, I'm fit to be tied.
Yep.
And so we walk back to our hotel at the Bullock Inn, and we get to our room. We get up there, and it was like, yeah, this was supposed to be like the highlight of our honeymoon night, our honeymoon week with a hot tub and our room and everything. And I'm just like, can't catch my breath. I'm getting sick all over again, but not quite to the beginning of our honeymoon. It was like the other end. And I'm like, I'm not okay. And I'm like sweating. And my husband's like, there is an emergency room here. We did pass an emergency room coming into town. And I'm like, but we can't go to the emergency room because I don't have insurance. Little did we know at this point that when we got married, I was actually covered under his insurance. Didn't know that. Yeah. So
bonus.
Yeah, if there's anything for somebody to learn from this, if you get smashed up on your honeymoon and your spouse is going to you're covered by your date of marriage. So this is Thursday night. I'm like, I can't afford an emergency room out of state because I don't have insurance that's going to cover this. And so I have to, whatever. I just have to grin and bear it. And he's like, well, why don't we sit in the hot tub? Maybe that'll make you relax a little bit and, just whatever. And yeah, no, don't do that either. That made it like 10,000 times worse.
Oh, no.
And anyway, so like climbing out and I'm like, okay, so that was the most uncomfortable night. By the next morning, I'm like, I can hardly take a breath. But I can't go into the emergency room. And my husband's like, yeah, we got to go to the emergency room. I'm like, we can't because I can't afford it because I don't have insurance. Again, we did not know that I would have been covered by his insurance with his international fancy company that he was working with for the time. And yeah, so we decide to just, this was our exit. That was our last scheduled night of our honeymoon. So we booked it from Deadwood all the way up to northeast of Bismarck, where my in-laws were, which is actually now where I'm sitting physically, because against common sense, we decided to quit our good jobs and take over the farm. But anyways, we drove up here to break up the trip to go back to Fargo, and so we come here, and the first night, and then like his dad is such my father-in-law is such a jokester. Like, he's just telling these jokes and funny stories and all these other crazy things, and it's just like, stop making me laugh. Like, it hurts. All I could do was hold my right hand up against my chest, like if you were doing the Pledge of Allegiance,
yep.
Because everything hurt so bad. And I couldn't figure it out. I'm just like, I just bruised myself. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, I just bruised myself. Like, we just rolled a horse down a hill. It wasn't a big deal. It was just, like, I've done many more crashes on horses in some worse. Like, this isn't a big thing. And roll into, okay, so that would have been Friday. We leave Saturday to go back to Fargo. It's Sunday. I'm like, well, I can't go to the clinic because it's Sunday. The only thing that's open is, never mind that there were walk-ins that were open. The only thing that's going to be open is the emergency room, which I can't do because I don't have insurance to cover an emergency room. And so I wait till Monday morning. And by this point, I'm like, I can hardly breathe. Well, I can breathe. But it hurt. It was definitely not comfortable. I would not recommend this. Very swollen. Had zero comfortable operation of my right arm just because of like the weight and like how it just pulled off of my body. And it just, you don't think of the structural components that your ribs actually have until ribs are damaged.
Yep.
So we finally roll into the walk-in clinic. They do an x-ray, and the doctor comes back and he's like, oh, congratulations. You broke your rib in 2 places and you have a floating section, and the bad news is there's zero we can do about anything.
Oh.
And I was like, thanks. And he's like, well, all we can do is send you home with maybe some pain medication and just tell you to try and keep it immobilized. And I'm like, yeah, I already doing that, but like, thanks for not fixing me. Which, how do you fix that? You can't fix them. It was the same rib broken in 2 places. So there's about a 2-inch floating section. Fortunately, it was high enough because, again, like I said, if it was any lower, any floating section of rib, you run the risk of possibly causing a lung issue, which is bad. Currently, we need lungs. But, I ended up being in a sling, which nothing to my collarbone, shoulder, any of that stuff, arm, clavicle, nothing. None of it was affected. It was just a stupid rib. But I had to be in a sling. And God forbid if somebody made me laugh, if I had to cough, and heaven forbid if I got the hiccups. Because, oh, my Lanta. Wow, that was bad. Yeah, I don't recommend hiccups and a broken rib. It's miserable. So, yeah. Also, don't really recommend rolling a horse over depending upon size.
No.
Not even depending upon size. It's just, irregardless of size, I don't recommend rolling a horse over. we laugh to this day because the horse that I have right now, at that time, she's older now, so she's a little bit more lean. Older animals don't hold weight like they do when they're in their prime, but at that point, she was probably, she was somewhere between 16 and a half to 1,700 pounds. And she was nearly 17 hands, which I'm not going to do the math on that, but every hand is 4 inches.
Okay.
And I know that, so that
I don't know what that means. I know some horse people and they always talk about that. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's okay. A hand is 4 inches. 18 hands would be 6 feet at the wither. So she was...
Don't know what that is either. What's a wither?
Oh, the wither is, okay, so like if you take from their ears going down the top, like you're going to trace the top of where their mane comes out, the hair on their neck, the long hair, and you go all the way down to their shoulder, and there's usually like a hump, and then you go down across their back where usually that's where you're going to put your saddle, right?
Yep.
Well, the hump, for lack of better terms there, that's the wither.
Okay.
That little bump of, the spinal bump above the shoulder.
They don't measure. They don't measure them like humans, where you measure to your top of your head at all. You're saying they measure to their back. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I learned something today.
Oh, good. Glad I was able to educate you. So if they're 18 hands, that's 6 feet. So being that she was almost 17 hands, so she would be 5 inches short of 6 feet at her wither. That's my horse.
Okay.
And if I had rolled a horse like that down the mountain, it would probably be a helicopter ride out of there, and I would have been a body cast. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah, I don't recommend rolling any kind of horse.
So how long before your ribs healed up?
Oh gosh, that took a bit. I worked in a warehouse, so I had to move like packages and load like pallets of boxes and things to be shipped out. So I was like, I couldn't work because I couldn't lift anything.
Oh,
and I think
okay.
it took a good long while before that got before I was better enough to get back to work in that department. They put me in office work, so it was literally stuffing envelopes. It was boring.
So, and you said that you had a floating section of rib. I mean, is that what it sounds like? Like a piece of rib is just floating around in your chest?
Well, it wasn't floating around because it was held by soft tissue, but the bones weren't connected because the bones were fractured. Okay.
Do those actually then grow back together, or how does that work?
Yeah, they grew back together, but they're indented. Like to this day, I have an indentation in my upper right chest where that pommel hit and crushed and crunched. I remember the crunch. I thought I was just getting.
You actually heard a crunch.
Oh, I heard and felt it, but I thought it was like everything. When you go to the chiropractor.
Oh yeah, you're saying that. Yep.
Yeah, and it was just like I thought that's what was happening. I'm like, oh, cool, I just got a chiropractor adjustment. Well, no, I didn't. It was a little bit more than that, but it took a little bit to get healed. And it was quite painful. I don't recommend the hiccups. I don't recommend laughing. Please don't cough if you can help it with a broken rib. Oof, it's tough. But obviously, I lived through it because I'm still here.
Well, is there any parting words you want to leave us with?
Well,
anything that you should or shouldn't do while riding a horse?
Well, do not override your conditions. Also, do not override your abilities too, which I don't think I was overriding my abilities, but definitely was overriding the conditions. Boy, yeah, no. But yeah, no, I guess just again to reiterate, your insurance is going to cover you if you marry somebody and they're going to take you under the day that you get married. So if you get in a wreck on your honeymoon, your honey nest, Hopefully nobody has a honey mess. I hope that we're the only ones out there.
Yeah, I hope so.
I doubt that we are, but I hope that we are. Because it's not going to be nice.
No.
But yeah, and then again, just, I don't care if it's a horse, if it's a quad, a snowmobile, a boat, a car, a sled, a toboggan, whatever. Don't override your conditions.
Yeah, that's good advice.
But anyway.
Well, thank you for coming on today and sharing your story.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Katie and Mitchell's honeymoon might not have gone as planned, but it's clear that their journey through all the chaos brought them closer in ways they never expected. From laughter in the face of food poisoning to the strength they found in each other after a truly wild ride. This story is a beautiful reminder that life doesn't always go the way we want it. But sometimes those unexpected moments can teach us the most about resilience, love, and the power of staying together through the tough times. Katie, thank you for sharing such a heartfelt and at times funny misadventure. Your story is proof that even in disasters, there's room for joy, growth, and connection. So to everyone listening, remember, the bumps in the road are just part of the journey. Keep laughing, keep learning, and keep holding on to each other. And cherish those moments, no matter how messy they seem. And always, stay safe out there, and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.